Petrol cars and motorbikes are on their way out. From 2035, all new motorbikes will have to be electric, and from 2030 for cars. It's not that petrol motorbikes will be illegal to own, you'll still be able to buy, own and run them, but if you're buying a motorbike brand new, it's going to have to be electric. Personally, I'm looking forward to this change for a number of reasons. One of the main reasons is I care a lot about environmental issues, and I think this is going to be a really important step to improve air quality. I live in London where pollution is quite bad, but the current measures in place to tackle this really hurt motorists and make it inconvenient to drive around the city, such as by paying huge fees to drive around if your vehicle pollutes too much. If you have the option to, most people just take a really long route around the city to avoid these ultra-low emission zones, which means that more cars are on the road for longer, and it probably pollutes more than just letting people drive normally. Otherwise, people are forced to upgrade to a newer and cleaner vehicle, which sounds great in theory, but a lot of people can't afford to do that. It's hard being a motorist and also caring about environmental issues, since most people just view the existing measures as punishing motorists and forcing people to buy vehicles that they can't really afford to keep up with the new standards. In my mind, this is where electric vehicles solve this problem. If enough people were to drive and ride electric vehicles, we could reduce carbon emissions by a good amount, and perhaps we could take away some of these measures that hurt people who can't yet afford to upgrade to newer and cleaner vehicles. There will still be an incentive to upgrade eventually because new vehicles produced will have to be electric ones. Most people are driving cars rather than riding bikes, so getting enough petrol and diesel cars off the road is going to do wonders for air quality all across the country. Which brings me to electric bikes. We have 5 years longer than car manufacturers to get electric motorbikes into mass production and adopted by the majority of motorcyclists. I think this is fair since there are a lot more cars on the road and they tend to pollute a lot more than bikes, so the priority should be on converting those to electric. Electric bikes are already in production, but personally I've never seen one in real life, so I don't think they're too widespread at the minute. I did see an electric moped which looks really cool, and I'm considering getting one to commute on, but in a few years time when my insurance is a little bit cheaper. One of the main barriers is cost, because at the minute electric bikes are really expensive. They do have some electric mopeds which are a little bit more reasonable for your average commuter, but they're still more expensive than buying a second-hand petrol moped or something. I can get the Z400 Performance Edition for £5,500, and Zero's A2 license offering costs £15,000 just for the base model, and you'll want some of the upgrades like expanded battery capacity and faster charging. As much as I love the look of these bikes, I just can't spend £15,000 on one. And this is why I'm really looking forward to the new laws coming into place. As demand increases, hopefully manufacturers will find ways to produce these vehicles a lot cheaper, so hopefully by 2035 they'll cost almost the same as petrol ones. I'm okay for them to be a little bit more expensive because of things like fuel savings and lower maintenance costs, but most people just don't have £15,000 to buy a bike in the first place, so it needs to be cheaper to begin with. Another barrier for me is the weight. Electric bikes tend to weigh quite a bit, with the Zero S coming in at around 185 kilos. That's not too much, but that's basically their 125 equivalent, and my 125 only weighs like 140 kilos or something. My Z400 weighs I think 167. Most electric bikes are up and above 200 kilos, and that's usually my limit for a bike's weight because I'm not the strongest person in the world. And I hope that as battery technology improves, they can make these a little bit lighter. In terms of power, I'm completely sold on electric bikes. The R125 is one of the fastest 125s you can buy, and it has a top speed of around 75 miles per hour and 9 foot-pounds of torque. The Zero S has a much nicer top speed of 86 miles per hour and 80 foot-pounds of torque, and you can ride that on a CBT or an A1 license. And just because of the nature of electric vehicles, all that torque is available immediately. If you watch videos of people riding the Zero S, it's insane that this bike is learner legal, although I'm sure that will change at some point in the future too. Imagine being able to pass your CBT and jump on a bike that's actually capable of riding at motorway speeds, and not having to avoid fast roads until you're off of your 125. At the minute the market is quite small, but with the upcoming law change this is only going to expand. Yes, an electric bike isn't going to replace the sound and feel of a petrol bike, but if it's going to give me immediate access to 80 foot-pounds of torque, then I don't really want it to. It's not supposed to be a copy of a petrol bike, it's just a different type of bike which has its own pros and cons. I don't want speakers playing exhaust noises or anything like that. And while I'm on the topic of exhaust sounds, there's quite a lot of concern around electric bikes being silent and what that means for safety. And I find it a little bit intimidating filtering on a really quiet bike, let alone a silent one. But when I was learning to drive a car, my instructor taught me not to rely on my hearing, since many cars and buses are electric and they make no noise at the minute. So I think improved driver education will help a lot with staying safe on a silent bike. I know to keep an eye out for vehicles that I might not hear, like electric vehicles or cyclists. So those are my thoughts on electric bikes. I'm completely for them. They're not quite perfect at the minute, but I think in a few years' time when I'm ready to buy my next bike, I'm almost definitely going to get an electric one. Yes, it's not going to be able to replace the sound and feel of a petrol bike, but I'm not too attached to a technology that harms the environment as much as petrol does. Let me know what you guys think, if you're excited to get an electric bike or if you think it's an awful idea. And in the meantime, safe riding, and I'll see you in the next one.